your man, Louie T. Welcome to the Draft Prospects 101 series, your guide to some of the biggest and hottest names of the 2022 NFL Draft. We started with the quarterback position because it's the most important position in all of sports, not just football, in all of sports, if you ask me. And so we've knocked down the guy that more likely than not will hear his name come off the board and be called first at the quarterback position come April in Kenny Pickett. Who will be the second quarterback? Who will be the next guy to hear his name called at the quarterback position? Here's a guy that's going to be in the running for that exact accolade. We're talking about Liberty quarterback Malik Willis. And this is a guy, 6'1", 215, that transferred from Auburn after 2 years of pretty much riding the pine for the Tigers. He goes over, sits out the 19 season, starts in 2020, doesn't look back for the Liberty Flame. And this guy was outstanding in his 2 years for Liberty. Now, the question you ask yourself is, can he be more consistent? The level of competition wasn't great when you saw him in a showcase game against elite level competition, a big time Power 5 school. He struggled mightily. So these are questions that we're going to address in this breakdown, but there are a lot of good things. I'll tell you this, his tape was some of the most uneven I've ever watched. And it's a lot of good, it's a lot of bad, and there are a lot of workable traits here. But there are a lot of things that need to be cleaned up if Malik Willis is going to be a high-level quarterback at the next level. So 6'1", 215, solidly built, not the size I would like. You know, I like my quarterbacks to be 6'3" or better, but we've seen guys be successful in this league. Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, even Baker Mayfield to a lesser degree, that aren't north of 6'1". So this guy's size is totally fine, and he's built thickly, so he can withstand the rigors of the NFL. So let's go inside the numbers with Malik Willis and what will make him a successful quarterback in this league. Let's take a look at how he's gotten to this point. So we start with his passing statistics, and as you see at the very top, 23 career starts. So not a ton of starts for Malik Willis. The body of work isn't as great or expansive as you would like, but that's really the going rate for guys coming out of college these days. You usually get 2 years of service as a starter from these guys, and you got to go off of that, and usually that's it. So anytime you get 3 years or more out of a guy, you feel really fortunate, and there's a lot to comb over, and you feel better about the decision you're about to make. 2 years is a good enough sample size, but it's not the sample size you would like. It's not the best sample size, but 23 starts, 17-6 overall record. And so that's a pretty good record over his 2-year run as a starter for Liberty. As you look at his numbers, as I mentioned, 2019 transferred in 2018 from Auburn, had to sit out the 2019 season. So really, those first 2 years in college in 17 and 18, those don't really resonate with me. Those don't really move the needle, which is why they're not listed here. Some very minuscule, insignificant numbers, a lot of them rushing totals. So we will start Malik Willis's collegiate stats, really, the ones that you need to be aware of from 2020 on. So as you can see, 10 games in 2020, that was a rough season on everybody. That was the COVID-19 year, but he made a name for himself in that 2020 season. 170 out of 265, which equals to a 64.2% completion percentage. That's not bad at all. 2,260 yards and then 8.5 yards per attempt. So that's a good, nice chunk of yardage per attempt if you're a first-time starter in college football. 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So that shows the ability to take care of the football and, make plays when plays present themselves. So that's a nice little 2.5 to 1 touchdown to interception ratio, especially for a first-time starter. I got no problems with that. Then you go to this 2021 season, and there were a lot of expectations coming into this year. At one point in that first year of starting in 2020, Liberty was 7-0, 8-0, excuse me. Malik Willis was 7-0 as a starter because he missed one game in 2020. So they got off to this ridiculous start. And so expectations were high for Willis coming into 2021. You see 13 games, 207 out of 339 for a 61.1% completion percentage. So the completion percentage went down. You don't want to see that. The yardage went up because there were more attempts. As you can see, 2,857 yards, 8.4 yards per attempt. So the yards per attempt did not go down, even though there were more passing attempts. So that's something that you'd like to see. And then the 27 touchdown passes, great. The number went up. But then also with more attempts came more INTs, 12 of them. So he doubles his INT output from his first season. In his second season, you don't want to see that. So when it's all said and done, 23 starts. You get a guy that's right around 63% completion percentage, and you're looking at 47 to 18 in terms of touchdown to interception ratio. So that's not bad. That's not bad at all. You're essentially sitting at a 3-to-1, roughly. So that's not bad at all. You'll take that from Malik Willis. But the thing that you have to also understand with Malik Willis is that he is a big-time athlete and a runner, and that's a huge part of his game. Unlike some of these other quarterbacks in this year's draft class where we can make mention of the rush yards but not really hone in on them, you have to talk about Malik Willis's legs because it's such a big part of his game. So as we continue inside the numbers, I wanted to take a look at his rushing statistics. And in college, also keep this in mind, sacks are counted as rushing attempts. So that's something to keep in mind. Unlike in the NFL where they subtract your sack total numbers from your passing yards, in college, they look at sacks as rushes. So when you look at Malik Willis's rushing statistics, this is something that is interesting. So 2020, 10 games, 141 attempts, 944 yards, almost 1,000 yards rushing for Malik Willis in his first year as a starter for the Liberty Flame. 14 touchdowns, 11 fumbles. That's the number I really want you to hone in on, is the 11 fumbles. That can't happen at the next level. And that shows a pure negligence of retaining the football. That shows little to no awareness of your surroundings. And that shows a lack of regard for ball security. So that number is unfathomable to me. 11 fumbles, even though he only lost 4 of them. You go to that final category and it's 4. Again, lost fumbles are a subjective thing because once that ball leaves your hand and you're not down, anything can happen. You know, guys could have clear shots at scooping it up and muff that, and then all of a sudden your lineman comes out of nowhere and saves the day. The ball bounces the right way and you recover it. The ball bounces the wrong way and the other team recovers it. He could have lost all 11. He could have lost none of them. 11 is too many damn fumbles, period, end of discussion. Now, he did clean that up the following year as we get to 2021. 13 games, 197 rush attempts, 878 yards, 13 touchdowns. I just love the fact that those touchdown numbers are so gaudy in back-to-back years, which shows you that this guy is a threat in the red zone to take off and be a factor. 3 fumbles, so that number came way down from 11, which was just asinine. And then he lost 1 of those 3 fumbles. So all in all, 14 fumbles in 23 career starts. You're almost talking about a little over a half a fumble per game. Now, there's no such thing as a half a fumble, right? But you're pretty much looking at a guy that's fumbling almost every game, essentially. You know, every other game, pretty much. That can't happen. Now, again, that 11 is a big outlier right now. Is that the norm? Is he somewhere in that mix, or was that just one of those abnormal seasons? That was something he focused in on, and now he won't fumble like that again. I watched a ton of games. I saw a lot of fumbles. I'm just going to tell you that right now. So that's something that he's definitely going to have to clean up at the next level. But at the end of the day, his rushing totals are gaudy, and it's something that you have to consider when looking at the complete portfolio and package that is Malik Willis. You have to take this into account because this is something that this guy excels at more so than any other quarterback in this year's draft class. So as we transition from inside the numbers to his pros, let's look at what makes Malik Willis a viable candidate to be maybe the second, depending on who is drafting, maybe the first quarterback off the board. He could go anywhere as high as the first off the board, more likely than not the second, or to as low as the 5th or 6th guy off the board. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Can't say that enough, especially at the quarterback position. So his first pro is tremendous athleticism. It jumps off the screen at you. His agility, ability to make guys miss in tight quarters, His speed, he's got acceleration. I've seen this guy now. Again, it's one thing to run by Campbell. It's one thing to run by ODU. It's one thing to run by, these teams that, don't have a ton of athletes that won't be playing on Sundays. But he's still fast. We know fast when we see fast. And he's a fast guy. He can pick him up and put him down as a quarterback. So his athleticism is tremendous, and that's something that's going to give him an opportunity to succeed at the next level. High-level arm talent is the next pro. He can spin it. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you ask me right now, he's probably got some of the best arm talent of any quarterback in this year's draft class. He can absolutely spin the football. I don't think that's something that anybody doubts watching him throw it. But, it's where the ball goes when he lets it go is a question that you have to ask yourself at times. But he can definitely sling it around the football field. There's not a lack of arm talent there. That is for sure. Quick release. I think his release is lightning quick. He gets rid of that football. When he makes up his mind as to where he wants to go with it, it comes out in a hurry. So his release is something that is definitely going to help him, because at times I don't think he actually lets it go when a guy is open. I don't think he anticipates as well, but you can make up for that. When you don't anticipate well, you can make up for it with a lightning quick release and putting a little bit of mustard and gas on that football. It'll get it there faster, and it'll allow you to make up for maybe not anticipating the throw as early as you should have. Physicality and toughness. This is a guy that he kind of plays the quarterback position like a running back. He doesn't shy away from contact. I actually like it when he slides, and you see that from time to time, but he more so puts his shoulder down, runs guys over. He's not looking to get out of bounds when he gets to the sidelines. He'll learn really quick when he gets to the next level, as many college quarterbacks do, that, this ain't college. You're not playing against Massachusetts, okay? You're playing against grown-ass men who are looking to tear your head off, and when you get to the sidelines, that's your friend. Use it. When you get a patch of grass in front of you and the guy's coming at, 19 miles per hour looking to tear your head off, you should slide, okay? And I think he'll learn that very quickly, but he showed off toughness and physicality at the collegiate level. He was not afraid to take on any single defender and try to get yards after contact. He's a play extender. He's a guy that makes things happen when the play breaks down. If he doesn't like what he sees initially, he'll get out of the pocket, but he's not always looking to just run. He's a guy that will look to extend to throw the football. So he's a guy that can extend plays. And again, when you get in the red zone, guys like Malik Willis become harder to contain and deal with, because they're the kinds of guys that are going to make things happen, that are going to extend plays, allow guys to uncover, find them in the back of the end zone, or use their legs to put pressure on the defense. And then the defense sucks up, somebody's wide open, and he gets it to him. So he's a guy that can extend plays and make things happen. And that leads us to the next pro. He's a playmaker. Whether he's using his arm or he's using his legs or he's using his legs to then use his arm, he's a guy that can make things happen. And again, you do not want to take that lightly when you're talking about a quarterback. When we've watched some of these young up-and-coming quarterbacks, the Joe Burrows, the Justin Herberts, the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens of the world, the reason those guys are so successful is because they are playmakers. When things don't go the way they were drawn up to go, these are the guys that make things happen anyway. Malik Willis is one of those guys that can make things happen when the play breaks down, when it doesn't look like the way you drew it up. Hey, in practice, we went against cover 3. They're not showing us cover 3 here against this look. This isn't what I was used to going against. When things break down, they have the perfect play called for the offensive play that you called. You got to make something happen. Malik Willis is a guy that can do that. Red zone dual threat. I talked about the 27 rushing touchdowns that this guy has in just two seasons. Okay, that is a ginormous number, and a number that will translate over to the NFL. Okay, so what you love about that is guys that can use their legs, guys that find the end zone, create another problem for defenses to have to take into consideration when defending down around the goal line. So Malik Willis is a guy that adds another element with his legs down in the red zone. He can throw it, but he can also use his legs, and it's something that you have to account for, and it just makes it that much tougher on a defense. Love that about his game as well. And then finally, raw talent and ability. he's got some things that you simply can't coach. Either you have it or you don't, and he's got a lot of it in spades in different areas. I talked about the arm talent, talked about the athleticism, talked about the playmaking ability. There's a lot to work with here if you've got the time and the patience. This guy's got the talent and ability. But again, do you have the time and the patience to work with him? Because there are some things that need to be worked out. He is not ready to go right out of the packaging. You don't just take him home, take him to your facility and open him up and stick a couple of batteries in and just hit the ground running. He's going to need some time. He's going to need some grooming. And so do you have the time and the patience? Because he's got the talent and ability. Finally, we get to his cons, or next we get to his cons. And these are the things that give you pause if you're thinking about selecting Malik Willis in the first round. Okay, if you're thinking about making him the first or the second or the third quarterback off the board, these are the things you must consider. First, he played in an RPO-heavy offense. Look, I don't like to belabor this point, which is why I get it out of the way first, because that's where a lot of these guys are coming from in the collegiate ranks now. And you're seeing a lot of the NFL adjusting to these young guys not having a ton of experience in a pro-style offense, or even just taking snaps from under center. The footwork isn't there. Look, I don't like guys that come from it. It's one thing to play out of a gun like Joe Burrow did, for instance, at LSU. He played in a spread offense, essentially, where they just spread you out 5 wide and let Joe Burrow go to work. That's different than an RPO-heavy offense where you're literally sticking the ball in the belly of the running back, riding that thing, pulling it out, and if that linebacker comes up and responds to run and reacts to run, you're throwing it to the tight end over the middle of the field. You're throwing it to that slant on the backside. There's a lot of that. Open window throws where you don't have to see it necessarily. Guys are open because of the run the run action, and so there's a lot of that I don't love, that because you don't really get a chance to really see a guy analyzing the opposing defenses when you get a lot of that. You get to see certain plays, certain instances where he's diagnosing what the defense is trying to do and understands where to go with the football. But there's so much RPO in that offense under Hugh Freeze at Liberty that you get to see a guy kind of just manipulating the defense and going off of what they give him. If they don't react to the run, then you give it to the running back, or you pull it out yourself and you take off. If they do react to the run, then you pull it out and you make a throw. So a lot of RPO. It is what it is. Inconsistent accuracy is something I would be more concerned with than the offense that he performed in. The accuracy is something that, for me, and he's right around 62.5% for his career. So it's not terrible, but that's not a great number. You want to be trending towards 70 more so than closer to 60. But there's some drops in there. You got to always take all of this stuff into consideration when talking about quarterbacks. There's some drops, with his receivers in there where he put the ball right on the money. There are some throws where you go, Malik, what the hell were you thinking there, buddy? And then there's some throws where he just airmails it. And a lot of times when he misses high. I like his short accuracy. I like his intermediate accuracy at times. I think his deep accuracy lacks consistency. There's times where he puts way too much air under the ball. Then there's times where he drops it right in the bucket. Then there's times where he puts not enough air on the ball and he throws it over his receiver's head. There are times where he stands in there and he throws a dime. There are some jaw-dropping throws by Malik Willis when you watch him on tape. And then there are throws where you go, dude, you can't miss that. You can't miss that throw, or you can't make that decision. Speaking of which, we'll get to that a little bit later on. Needs to see it to let it rip. Too often, guys are running in windows, and he doesn't anticipate that guy getting to that window. Instead, he wants to see him totally uncover before he lets it go. You can get away with that when you're playing Campbell, when you're playing Massachusetts, when you're playing Old Dominion. You can get away with that. But when you start playing NC State, when you start playing against Ole Miss, when you start playing against Syracuse, when you start playing against teams with more talent that are from Power 5 schools, then you see that those windows start to tighten up. And if that's bad, then wait till you get to the next level, because if you don't start anticipating, you're really going to see a huge jump in those interceptions. So he's going to have to trust his eyes. If a guy's supposed to run a 7-yard slant, that linebacker sucks up and responds to an underneath route and you're running a high-low concept, you got to let it go. You can't stare it down until that guy comes open, because you think he's open, but now you're attracting a guy from the opposite side of the field to jump in front of it and make a play. He's got to see it and let it go, okay? Or he's got to anticipate and let it go. Don't see it. Don't stare it down and then let it rip. Anticipate, let it go. Will overextend plays, and we see this from college quarterbacks all the time, especially guys that are playmakers. They never want to give up on a play. And when you overextend plays, it means that the play is dead and you're still trying to make something happen. And that's when bad things usually happen. Okay. There's a such thing as overextending a play, just like you can overcook food, right? Nobody wants their food dark and blackened to the point where it's like you're biting into concrete. So you can overcook food. You can overcook a play. You can overextend a play. And sometimes when you do that, you take sacks that are unnecessary. You make ill-advised decisions and throws. Sometimes you've got to know when to say when. And there's times where you make two guys miss. There's a third defender coming. And look, at this point, the play is dead. They got you. Okay? Throw it out of bounds. You're out of the pocket. Live to fight another day. There's no reason for 1st and 10 to turn into 2nd and 18. 2nd and 10 is much better than 2nd and 18. And sometimes these young quarterbacks don't understand that concept. So that's something he's going to have to clean up. And I say that the guy was sacked 50 times in 2021, 68 total times in 2 years, but 50 of them came in 2021. That is an asinine number, okay? 50 sacks in a 13-game season means you're almost sacked 4 times per game. Now, some of that is on his offensive line. It was not good. Their offensive line was tragically bad, especially their right tackle. But some of this was on Malik Willis as well, holding on to the ball way too long, trying to make something happen, dodging, and then getting sacked instead of throwing the football away. He could have shaved off 10 to 12 of those sacks by himself, okay, just getting rid of the football when nothing was there. So he can overextend plays. He needs to be a little bit more cognizant of taking care of that issue. Ill-advised decisions under duress. Again, this is a guy that threw 12 interceptions this year, 18 for his career at Liberty. Liberty. And for me, a lot of those interceptions come when he's either under duress or he's trying to fit the football over defenders and he doesn't have enough touch. Yeah, but for me, the ill-advised decisions, like there's one throw in particular, I'm watching him in a game where you watch him and he's getting hit as he's letting the football go. And you're like, dude, do not throw that football. I want to say it was against Virginia Tech. He's getting hit as he's throwing the football. It's almost picked off. And you're like, hey, dude, just throw it away in that situation. Like, don't try and force it. You got a defender bearing down on you. You know what it is. Throw it out of bounds. But in that same vein, there's another game I'm watching him in. And his receiver is running a deep post over the middle of the football field. As he's getting hit, Malik Willis gets that football 40 yards down the field on the button in the end zone for a touchdown. As he's getting hit, I still don't know how that football got there the way that it did. But he can do that. But again, that's an ill-advised decision. And there are times where he's rolling out of the pocket. I'm watching him in a game against Louisiana. He's rolling out to his right. And I'm like, bro, really? You know, and he throws it, and it should have been picked off. I mean, he hit the defender right in his hands. If he doesn't pick it off, there's another defender that's cutting in front of the route that's going to pick it off. And I'm saying, what are you looking at? What did you think you were going to accomplish there? There's guys bearing down on you. You're running towards the sidelines. Throw it out of bounds. He's throwing across his body, back across the field. He's living dangerously, and that's how you get picked off a lot of times. So, and then that's how a lot of these fumbles occur as well. You know, when you're running around, you're not, cognizant of what's going on around you. Sometimes you're oblivious to the pressure. You're dipping and dodging inside of the pocket, and eventually somebody's going to come and hit you, and they're looking to get the football out. Got to be a little bit more aware of your surroundings if you're Malik Willis. And then finally, level of competition. I don't want to harp on this too much because, again, all you can do is take care of who they put in front of you. He transferred to Liberty. This is a guy that was talented enough to be recruited by Auburn. So it's not like this guy went unknown, had no offers, was a 2-star recruit. This is a guy that was at Auburn, and just because he didn't win the quarterback competition and he wasn't getting on the field, he wanted to get an opportunity. He goes to Liberty, and again, I can't state this enough. But, you know, when you're playing Campbell and you're playing Massachusetts, you're not playing guys that are going to be playing on Sundays more likely than not. So I'll just know this. He had 5 games against teams that played at Power 5 conference. That played in Power 5 conferences. Okay, 5 games against Power 5 schools. And he went 2-3 in those games with a 9-6 touchdown to interception ratio. So he wasn't terrible in those games. He didn't look overmatched and overwhelmed. His team overall might have been somewhat overmatched and overwhelmed in some of those games. But he himself was not overwhelmed. I thought the only game that he looked overwhelmed in was the Ole Miss game. I thought he looked overmatched in that game. I thought the NC State game from 2020, I thought there were times where he looked overwhelmed and overmatched in that game. But then there were games like against Virginia Tech where he absolutely destroyed them in that game, and he looked like he was comfortable against a Power 5 school. Syracuse, the first time around, destroyed them. The second time around, Syracuse was ready for him, and they really were able to make him make some mistakes in that football game. But again, he doesn't look like the level of competition is too much for him, but he did struggle in his one audition, the one where everyone was watching, all eyes on the 2 quarterbacks for the opposing teams, Matt Corral for Ole Miss and Malik Willis for Liberty, and he went out and he laid an egg, and he played arguably his worst collegiate game of his career. And there's been some stinkers in there. There's another one against Louisiana Lafayette that wasn't all that appealing to the eyes. So, you know, there's some games in there. I think it was Louisiana Monroe actually was one of the games I watched that wasn't a very good performance by Malik Willis in a loss, no less. So, level of competition is something to consider, but again, it's not the end-all, be-all. So, who is his player comp? I think this is a pretty easy one if you ask me. You know, it's so funny. I talk to so many people that swear by Malik Willis but can't stand Jalen Hurts as a prospect and think that Jalen Hurts stinks. And I'm saying if you think Jalen Hurts stinks, you can't love Malik Willis because they're one and the same. Same size, same athleticism, same type of arm, you know, same moxie, same toughness, willing to run the football, do whatever it takes. They see the field the same. They both took a ton of sacks in college. Both were loosey-goosey with the football, kind of casual. The traits are all here. They're the same quarterback, okay? Malik Willis may have a little bit more of a passing prowess than Jalen Hurts potentially, but they're one and the same, okay? They're the same guy to me. So if you don't love Jalen Hurts, then you can't love Malik Willis to me because they're the same guy. Okay, if you love Jalen Hurts or you think Jalen Hurts has a future in the NFL, then you can love Malik Willis and think he's got a future. But they're pretty similar in terms of their skill set and what they provide at the next level. So I look at Malik Willis and I think this guy has some talent. But again, much like Jalen Hurts, can someone get the most out of the talent that's there? Can you squeeze every single ounce of talent out of Malik Willis, minimize the things that he doesn't do well, maximize the things that he does do well? Can you put him in a position to be successful? That's what someone's got to ask themselves. And what do you have to do in order to make him comfortable? Do you have to change around your entire philosophy? Or can you have this guy come in, learn your offense, and have him somewhat adjust to what you're asking him, but then also bring some things in that he's comfortable with as well to make it a beautiful mesh of the 2 styles, yours and his? These are all things you have to ask yourself when going after a guy like Malik Willis. But for me, I wouldn't spend anything earlier than a 2nd-round pick. Jalen Hurts was a 2nd-round pick. I think that's exactly what Malik Willis should be. I would not spend a 1st-round pick on him. He is not ready to help a football team right away out of college. I think he's a guy that has some work that needs to be done. And there's nothing wrong, like Trey Lance this past year, with sitting for an entire year and just waiting for your turn and learning. And so if I'm a team interested in Malik Willis, I'm looking to pull the trigger on him after the first 32 picks have been turned in and made. He's a day 2 prospect for me. I take him in the 2nd round and have no problems doing it, but I would not spend a 1st round pick on Malik Willis. So that is my analysis. What's yours? Leave it down in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. That's going to do it for Malik Willis and his Draft Prospects 101 wrap up. Plenty more of this to come. So if you haven't already done so, please do me a huge favor and subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And also hit the like button as it helps this channel grow exponentially. Until next time, you guys have a good one. I'm out.
Louie T Network.